A lot of people think conflict begins with something dramatic, a betrayal, a harsh word, a major act of disrespect. But a surprising amount of tension begins somewhere much smaller, in what was not said, in what was assumed, in what was left vague, in the sentence that stayed in somebody's head instead of entering the room. Aaron began noticing this in ordinary life, not in chaos, in dinner plans, work messages, friendship misunderstandings, family tension, conversations that should have taken 20 seconds, but somehow became 2 days of distance. From the outside, nothing looked serious. That was the problem. Because when poor communication creates damage, the damage often looks emotional. Before it looks logical, people think they are reacting to what happened. Often they are reacting to what was never made clear. The fifth problem poor communication creates is resentment built on assumption. Aaron had one evening that stayed with him. He had been home. She had been at the office. He assumed she was handling dinner. She assumed he would sort something out because he had been in all day. No argument had happened. No plan had actually been made. No agreement had clearly existed. But when the moment arrived, both of them felt let down. That is how assumption works. Nobody lies, nobody cheats, nobody sets out to create tension. But two silent expectations collide and suddenly both people feel as if the other should have known better. That is the first hidden cost of poor communication. It creates resentment without requiring bad intention. And resentment built on assumption is especially dangerous because it feels morally justified. Each person says, I thought this was obvious, but obvious to you is not the same thing. As communicated clearly, people cannot respond to what was only implied. They can only respond to what was actually spoken. If a plan matters, say it. If a need matters, say it. If a role is unclear, clarify it early. Because many relationships do not suffer first from cruelty, they suffer from guesswork. The fourth problem poor communication creates is that small issues become expensive. At work, Aaron saw this constantly. A vague message, an unclear deadline, a sentence like, can you handle this? With no detail, no timing, no real confirmation of what this actually meant. At first, it looked minor. Then the follow-up came. Why wasn't this done? And now, what should have been a simple clarification had become pressure. This is another truth people miss. Small communication failures rarely stay small, because when clarity is missing, people fill the gap with their own interpretation, then they behave based on that interpretation, then they get frustrated when reality turns out to be different. And suddenly, a problem that could have been prevented with one clear sentence starts costing time, energy, patience, and trust. Poor communication turns tiny uncertainties into avoidable friction. That is why mature people do not wait until confusion becomes visible. They ask earlier, what exactly do you mean? What time are we saying? Who is handling this? What does done look like? Those questions do not make you difficult, they make you clear. The third problem poor communication creates is disappointment that feels personal. This happens when expectations remain unspoken for too long. Aaron saw this with friends too. One friend thought they were closer than they were. Another assumed a favor would be returned. Another expected loyalty in a situation that had never actually been discussed. And when those expectations failed, the emotion was real, but the communication had been missing. That is what makes this kind of pain so confusing. The disappointment feels deep, sometimes even insulting. But when you look closely, the foundation underneath it was often never made clear in the first place. People think they were betrayed. Sometimes they were simply not understood. And those are not always the same thing. If you never clearly say what matters to you, what hurts you, what you expect, or where you stand, other people will fill in the blanks with their own model of reality. Then one day you punish them emotionally for failing a test they did not know they were taking. That is unfair, and it happens every day. If this is landing so far, subscribe. Not for louder motivation, but for the kind that helps you reduce avoidable tension, speak with more clarity, and build stronger relationships without unnecessary drama. Now back to the script. The second problem poor communication creates is emotional distance. Not every relationship breaks through a big explosion. Some go cold. Through repeated uncertainty, a person stops bringing things up because previous conversations felt too vague, too tense, or too unrewarding. Another person stops asking questions because they are tired of decoding half answers. Over time, less gets said, more gets guessed, and the atmosphere changes. Aaron noticed this. In one relationship, before he had the language for it, nothing looked broken. They still spoke, still functioned, still handled the day, but the warmth had changed. Why? Because neither of them felt fully clear about where they stood. Poor communication does not only create arguments, sometimes it creates distance. Quietly, a person begins withholding, not because they have stopped caring, but because clarity feels too difficult to reach. That is dangerous. Because once emotional distance starts, people often misread it. They think maybe we have grown apart, when sometimes the truth is simpler. Too many things were left unsaid for too long. Aaron started changing this by asking himself a better question. Not, why are people so frustrating, but what have I left unclear? That question exposed a lot. How often he hinted instead of stating. How often he hoped instead of confirming. How often he expected understanding without offering clarity. And once he saw that, something became obvious. Silence is not neutral when clarity is needed. Silence makes other people guess, and guessing is where tension begins. The first problem poor communication creates is avoidable conflict, becoming normal. This is where the cost gets serious. When poor communication happens often enough, people stop seeing it as a problem to fix. They start seeing it as personality. That's just how we are. That's just how they are. We always argue about small things. We always misunderstand each other. But always is not an explanation. It is a warning. When avoidable conflict becomes part of the atmosphere, people start adapting badly. They get defensive faster. They assume tone. They rehearse arguments in advance. They stop giving each other the benefit of the doubt, not because they are evil, because confusion has trained them to expect emotional cost. This is what poor communication does at scale. It normalizes tension that never needed to exist. And once that happens, people start living in reaction to patterns that could have been reduced with clearer speech, earlier honesty, and less assumption. So what actually changes this? Not endless talking, not emotional speeches. Every 5 minutes, better communication. Usually looks simpler than that. Say the plan clearly. State the expectation early. Confirm the time. Name the issue before it grows. Ask instead of assuming. Clarify instead of stewing. Repeat back what matters. If the moment is important, simple things repeated change atmosphere. Aaron learned that clear communication does not remove every conflict, but it removes a shocking number of unnecessary ones. And that matters because a lot of peace is not built through perfect compatibility. It is built through fewer preventable misunderstandings. So what are the 5 problems poor communication creates? Resentment built on assumption, small issues becoming expensive, disappointment that feels personal, emotional distance and avoidable conflict becoming normal, different settings, same pattern. People suffer when clarity is late. They get frustrated, not only by what happened, but by the meaning they attach to what happened, while no one was being clear. That is why communication matters. Not because every feeling must be turned into a speech, but because people cannot respond properly to what stays trapped inside your private version of the story. Aaron did not become a perfect communicator overnight. He still missed things sometimes, still got frustrated, still assumed too much on the wrong day, but he started catching it earlier. And that changed the quality of his relationships, because mature communication is not about sounding impressive, it is about reducing confusion before confusion becomes pain. If something matters, say it clearly. If a plan exists, make it visible. If a problem is forming, name it earlier. People are not mind readers, and too much suffering comes from expecting them to be. Let the ideas compound.